I was recently quoted by Travel Weekly. In October, I was invited to attend the A World for Travel Forum, which was in Nîmes, France, and I was a speaker on a panel about carbon offsets and carbon removals in the travel industry. I want to share my comments with you guys and see what you think. This first comment has a ton packed into it, so let's break it down. There is confusion about carbon offsetting schemes. I completely stand by this. I think consumers are faced with an absolutely overwhelming amount of choice for carbon offsetting projects. It is so hard to tell what is real and verified and actually making a difference versus what is potentially a scam and complete waste of money. So that's a problem. Second thing, planting a tree is not very effective. If this is news to you, then I'm sorry to break it to you. Planting a tree is generally seen as kind of a band-aid solution and not a great band-aid at that. One of the biggest problems with planting trees is that there's not always that oversight that makes sure that the trees actually grow to maturity to the point where they actually are capturing carbon. But it is complicated, and so it is challenging to educate travelers about this. And then I said we can't rely on leisure travelers to solve this problem, and I want to explain what I mean by that. It is absolutely not to say that you and me, that individual travelers, should not be responsible for our actions. If we choose to fly, ideally we are doing something to help the climate and the environment. But just like, switching to metal straws over plastic straws is not going to save the world, realistically. So this segues into the next chunk. The scale of the crisis that we're facing is simply too big to be solved by individuals doing a million different things. So that will help, but it's not going to solve the whole problem. So then I said regulation would be more effective. What I mean by that is that we need governments, especially governments of the countries that are damaging the climate the most, to actually step up and do more. Not by 2050, right now. I also said we need collaboration between large companies, especially airlines and governments. Most companies are not thinking about the triple bottom line about people, planet, and profit. That means that unless there is a financial incentive, they're not going to change their behavior. And when we talk about the carrot and the stick, do you incentivize or do you force? I think it's past time, that governments use that stick, use their regulatory power to say, you know what, we need to make changes right now. Then in this last piece, I said governments could require sustainable aviation fuel to be used, flights to be offset, and companies to move to net zero. I then learned, and I made a different video about this, that sustainable aviation fuel is actually sold out for the next 3 years. So that idea of mine is not viable right now. But governments could require airlines to do things like matching offsets that their customers do, or to offset themselves so that customers don't have to. It could also do things like give tax rebates if an airline is net zero, actually net zero. I could talk about this forever, but here's what I want you to take away. We have a massive problem and we all need to be working together to solve it. Governments, companies, and individuals. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts?